Hello and welcome to another Heart Moto video. In today's video, I'm going to tackle one of the first jobs on the R6 to get her back on the road. Let's see how we get on. Okay, so the first job we need to undertake on the R6 is purely just a cosmetic job. Basically, we have tiny amounts of surface rust appearing on the seams on the bottom on the tank, only on this side. The other side is fine. I've had a look in underneath. There's nothing on the back of the tank. It's just on the very edges, what looks like underneath the welds on the seams of the tank. Now, I did spot this a while ago, and I have treated it with a little bit of Cure Rust and sprayed some ACF 50 just to keep the moisture out of it until I got round to doing the repair. So I think in this instance we don't need to take the tank clean off. All I've done is just basically undone the remove the steering dampener. So basically undone the headstock bolt and the two bolts that hold the tank in place at the front of the bike, and the one underneath the seat here. Just loosen that to give us a little bit of leverage to lift it up so I can get to this edge here. So I think what I'm going to do is basically just lightly sand down with very fine paper. Probably start off with a 1200 grit paper, and then see how we go. If I feel I do need to take the tank off, then obviously I will do, but I think we should be able to get to everything that we need in situ. So what we'll do is we'll carry on with the sanding down process and see what we find. Okay, so I thought I'd just bring you in for a closer inspection. Now, hopefully you can see just here, this is where I've treated it with some Cure Rust. You can see the staining, very light staining there of the oxidization starting to happen on that seam on the tank there. So there's that bit there, a little bit here, and there's a bit further down there and there. Now I've started to sand this down. I don't know if that will be picked up with the camera. It's very minor, but like a lot of these things, if you don't get at it straight away, before you know it, you'll be looking at a new tank and a respray. So we don't want that. So I think I'm going to carry on lightly sanding this down, and hopefully if we can lose as much of this oxidization as possible, and then I shall retreat again with some Cure Rust. I'm going to use some Nitromor's Cure Rust, and I think I might even be able to get away with just touching this in with craft brushes, very faint craft brushes, building the layers up and then wet and dry the area down. I'll try it in a localized area first. If that doesn't work out, then obviously I'll sand it down and then spray it properly. But if we can get away with, like I say, with very fine craft brushes, that would save a lot of time and effort. But right, so let's crack on. Okay, so sanded down that local area there. Any of the loose stuff, if any, has gone. So yeah, that was with a very, very fine grit, 1200 grit paper. That's as smooth as a baby's bottom now. So I think what we'll do is we'll treat that area again with the Nitromore's rust converter pen, and then hopefully that will keep that at bay. I don't think it warrants going any further than that. So basically we'll apply that to that area there, and then we'll move up to the higher part of the tank. Again, I've had another good look round in underneath the tank on the seams on both sides. There's nothing on the inside. It's just on these lips here. So yeah, just very, very localized, but nevertheless, let's stop it before it spreads. Right, let's get this applied. As you can see, I don't know if the camera picks up, extremely fine brush on that. We might have to use something slightly bigger, but let's see. Okay, let's bring you in a little closer now. So basically, this area here, now this hasn't been painted, this is just the Nitromore's that I've brushed on. So I think what we'll do, we'll let that cure. It says it's fast acting. It says read the packaging for instructions in typical bloke fashion. That went in the bin. So I think what we're going to have to do is use my initiative and probably leave that overnight to harden, and then a very gentle wet and dry sand on that, and then we'll be ready to apply paint on that area. So if you, hopefully, like I say, you can see that now, and then compare it to what we've got here. So basically what we've got here is what we had down there. So hopefully you can see the difference that has made already. So right, so while that is setting, I'll crack on with the second part here, and we'll see how we go. I think once I've actually painted everything, what I'm going to do is probably get a small can of the Finnegan's wax oil. I don't know if that's a product you're familiar with. My dad used to use that on his cars for years, and those the body shells on old Fords and things like that just never rotted out. It was one hell of a good product. So I think what I'll do is get myself a can of Finnegan's wax oil and just spray along that seam as well to stop any more of the weather getting in. It's not so it sees the weather anymore, but I mean, my dad, bless him, he did ride this bike quite a lot, and he did do some trips and tours on it as well. You know, so it was used, and yeah, he loved it. So let's crack on and get it back to how it was when it rolled out the showroom. Right, speak to you in a while. Okay, so that's the affected areas now treated. So I think what I'm going to do is leave it overnight. I mean, there's no rush. It's something that, you know, I'm going to do over the winter. this bike. You know, I wanted to get it absolutely pucker again. So in terms of preparation, I've used a bit of citrus degreaser, T-cut as well, some fine wet and dry paper. This one, to get rid of the deeper bits, I've used a 320 and then moved up to 1200. And then tomorrow I shall probably start with a 2000 grit paper and then apply the first coat of paint and then see how we go. And then obviously I've got microfiber cloth, my Nitromores rust converter pen, and a slightly bigger craft brush to apply the rust converter. Again, this is a similar sort of brush I should probably use or try with painting with first. I've done the odd little touch-up repair on big stone chips and things like that on cars, and these work really well. Like I say, they're just a micro detail craft brush. I find they work so much better than the big brushes that you get, from, with the touch-up paints and brushes that you get from the car manufacturers. So let's bring you in one more time so you can have a closer look here. So, like I say, before we started, that was quite orangey. So let that do its magic, and the same up along here as well. Right, we'll reconvene tomorrow. Okay, so it's been approximately 24 hours since I've applied the Cure Rust, and I've been experimenting on how to apply the paint. So I think I've come up with what I think is the right solution for this seam on the tank. So bear with me on this. I'm going to be using smooth white hammerite. Now, like I say, bear with me. I am going to thin this down. Okay, so basically it's not going to be globby or anything like that. So I should be thinning it down and then wet and dry afterwards. Now, I have tried late yesterday, I don't know if this is going to be picked up on the camera, a little test section, basically from where my finger is here to the end of the tank there. Now, in terms of a colour match, pretty much bang on. I've only lightly gone over it with a wet and dry paper, and that looks pretty damn good. And I think, to be honest with you, with the naked eye, you're not even going to be able to tell that is there. So what I'm going to do is, like I say, with my craft brush, is basically run along the edge of this seam here, all the way along, right up to the top of the tank, up to the red, with the white smooth hammerite. Like I say, it will be thinned down, and I must admit I'm pretty impressed with this, how that's turned out. Like I say, I mean, yes, I could spray it, but there's a lot of masking off. Sometimes it's not. You get the thickness of coat that you want, especially on a very fine edge like this. And with hammerite being, a very durable product, and with its anti-corrosion properties, I just think it's the right thing to do on this area on the tank. So less waffle, let's crack on, apply the hammerite, and see how we go. Okay, so basically I've mixed some Hammerite with some paint thinner in a clean paint pot. So as you can see, that's nice and thin, very pliable. So let's crack on and start applying it to the tank and see how we go. So basically I'm just concentrating right on the edge of the seam just below the weld. I appreciate it's very difficult to see on the camera. But I do think with the Hammerite, it will, with its anti-corrosion properties, will preserve the tank forevermore. Okay, so if I bring you in for a closer inspection, hopefully you can see just below the weld there where I've applied the Hammerite, and we're just approaching the first bit of the tank that we've treated with the Cura. So basically the Hammerite, we will wet and dry sand that down once it's gone off, and then we'll have a nice smooth finish. So hopefully you can see that a bit better now. Right, let's crack on. I do think this is probably going to need 2 passes, so again we'll let this dry off, wet sand it, 1 more coat, wet sand it again, and then hopefully that should be that. Like I say, steady hand and patience is required. It's not a 30-second job. Okay, so that's the first coat applied. I've used the heat gun on the low setting just to help it on its way to cure. Bit of advice to the heat gun: keep it moving. Don't keep it in the same spot, because then you're likely to either damage some plastics or the paintwork itself. So yeah, and obviously keep a good distance away, probably a good 18 inches I would have thought, something like that, from the area, and then just keep it moving so you don't have a concentrated amount of heat on the tank. So I think what I have to do now is like I say, let that harden, and then do the first pass with the wet and dry paper, and then see what we are left with. But fingers crossed, judging by what I experimented with yesterday on this little section down here, I'm hoping it'll turn out okay. But like I say, you never know with these things. It's trial and error after all. So I think what I'll do, I'm going to go and have a spot of lunch, come back after lunch, wet and dry it down, and then see what the results are. I'll speak to you in a while. Okay, so I've wet and dried down the the seam with 3000 grit paper. So if I just bring you in a bit closer with my phone, I don't know if you can see that edge now, that corrosion's all gone, and the same up on that seam as well. So I think what we're going to do now is just basically let it harden again overnight, give it one more wet and dry, and then probably give it a compound. Then I would say that looks as good as it's going to get, unless I take it to a body shop and spend an absolute fortune, which I don't think it really warrants really. If I can keep on top of it myself, great. So yeah, like I say, you've got to really look careful. You can see it's a slightly different shade. I mean, because it's like a pearlescent white, the tank, but that seam is down in below anyway. You're not going to see it when it's sitting flush back on the bike. And like I say, the purpose of this exercise is to keep the rust at bay, you know, so we don't have to replace the tank. But yeah, like I say, it's all on that seam. I think the biggest problem in this area here is where perhaps water lays on those rubber bushes. So I think what I'll do is, when I fit that back in place, is just basically squirt some grease in there as well. So that should hopefully stop that problem. So, right, like I say, I think we'll leave that at this stage for now. If there's anything else to add, I'll add it to the end of the video, but I think we're pretty much 95% there really. So again, if you found this video of interest and of use, please do comment in the comment section below. I'll be very grateful for a like and a subscribe, and I do hope you can join me again in future videos. Thanks again for watching. Cheerio!